Another mystery buried deep in the hills of eastern Washington keeps resurfacing, a bottomless pit said to be a pathway to the paranormal.
In the heart of eastern Washington lies a strange mystery, Mel's Hole, a seemingly bottomless pit wrapped in enigma. Discovered by local resident Mel Waters, this hole has led to a series of eerie discoveries and unexplainable events that defy rational understanding. Surveillance cameras lowered into its depths have captured unsettling images, leaving even seasoned scientists perplexed. Surrounded by whispers of paranormal activity and government secrecy, the truth behind this unfathomable void remains elusive. In a remote corner of eastern Washington, a mysterious enigma continues to baffle and intrigue locals and visitors alike. Nestled among the rolling hills, a strange, seemingly endless pit has captured the imagination of many. Known as Mel's Hole, this curious phenomenon has been the subject of many tales and explorations. When a camera was lowered into this abyss, the footage it returned astounded people across the globe. This unusual pit is located on what is known as the Melat property, situated west of Ellensburg on the Manistash Ridge. It looks like a regular hole in the ground, similar to a well, but it's not for drawing water. Over the years, it became a makeshift dumping site where various items were discarded, ranging from household trash to broken machinery and car tires. Surprisingly, no matter how much was dumped, the hole seemed never to fill up, sparking Mel's curiosity about its depth and contents. Strange happenings began to unfold around this mysterious pit. Mel noticed that his dogs would steer clear of it, acting as if they were wary or frightened. Odd, unexplainable signals on his radio when near the hole added to the mystery. In 2017, a team of researchers determined to investigate further lowered a camera into its depths, only to be alarmed by what they saw, prompting them to abandon the site. Mel's Hole is not just an ordinary hole, it is a large circular gap about 9 feet across, encircled by a stone wall extending down about 15 feet before giving way to complete darkness. The hole, long used as a dumping site by Mel and his neighbors, astonished everyone with its silence, no sound echoes or indication of depth when items were thrown in. Driven by curiosity, Mel Waters, an avid fisherman, decided to measure its depth. Attaching a 1-pound weight to his fishing line, he lowered it into the pit, unspooling 4,500 feet of line without hitting bottom. Determined to discover more, he switched to using Lifesavers candy, hoping to detect water, but they returned completely dry. Undeterred, Mel extended the line, eventually reaching an incredible 10,000 feet and still no bottom was found. He went as far as using a total of 88,000 feet, over 16.6 miles, of line, yet the hole remained bottomless. During his experiments, Mel noticed something unsettling. His dogs avoided the hole entirely, digging their paws into the ground to resist going near it, as if sensing an invisible danger. The area around the hole was eerily silent, devoid of birds or insects, although birds flew over it unperturbed. Conversations with neighbors revealed similar stories about their dogs, and one neighbor shared a chilling account. Grieving the loss of his dog, he had disposed of its body in the hole, only to see the same dog days later, alive and wearing its familiar collar, yet behaving as if it had come from another world. These events, combined with the hole's apparent endlessness, left Mel overwhelmed and uncertain. In 1997, Mel turned to Coast AM, a radio show hosted by Art Bell known for exploring mysterious and paranormal phenomena. Mel shared his story, captivating millions of listeners worldwide. Maybe they could help make sense of the bottomless hole and the strange things happening around it. If there was any chance to find answers, it would be through the curious and open-minded audience of Coast to Coast AM. The saga of Mel's Hole darkened with government involvement and deeper mysteries revealed on this popular radio show. On February 21, 1997, Mel decided to share his story with Art Bell. Mel sent a message to Art, and not long after, they had a phone conversation. That chat became the start of something huge. Suddenly, everyone was talking about Mel's mysterious hole. Over a few radio programs, Mel shared more about his strange and deep hole. People from all over the globe tuned in, offering advice and suggesting ways to measure the hole's depth, like using lasers or ground-penetrating radar. However, sharing his story came at a price. Mel revealed clues about the hole's location, and the very next day, he found his land taken over by the United States military. They barred him from entering, claiming a plane had crashed there. The following morning, helicopters buzzed overhead, solidifying the military's presence. Mel had noticed the hole's peculiar effects on its surroundings. Animals avoided it, while plants thrived. Radios near the hole emitted strange noises, occasionally picking up distant stations or broadcasts from decades ago. Once, Mel's radio played music from the past, and on another occasion, it tuned into a 1967 baseball game. When Mel spoke to Art from Ellensburg, their hour-long conversation set off a series of events. Upon trying to return to his land, Mel found armed military personnel blocking his way, claiming they needed to investigate a crash site, yet there were no signs of wreckage. A man in plain clothes hinted at potential legal troubles if Mel resisted. Undeterred, Mel threatened to alert the media, but the man dismissed him, asserting no one would believe his story. Art Bell's audience, however, was eager to believe. Days later, Art called Mel back to check in. Mel relayed a neighbor's account of a dark beam of light shooting skyward from the hole, piercing through the clouds. Though Mel hadn't seen it himself, others in the area confirmed the region's history of bizarre occurrences, including UFO sightings and mysterious disappearances. Listeners speculated wildly about the hole's nature. Some believed it sat on a ley line, an invisible energy path across the Earth, while others thought it might be a gateway to another dimension or time. Theories abounded about the fate of objects thrown into the hole, perhaps they reappeared in another world. One caller even suggested the hole could be an entrance to the Hollow Earth, an ancient concept envisioning a hidden world inside our planet. Another neighbor mentioned that the hole once had large stone pillars surrounding it. Concerned listeners warned Mel about government surveillance, cautioning him against sharing too much. Mel promised to return with updates, but when his next appearance was due, he vanished. Calls went unanswered, and a TV crew investigating the area found no trace of the hole, only evidence of military activity. Years later, Mel would reveal that someone had offered him a staggering $3 million annually to lease his land, yet the mystery of Mel's hole remained unsolved, shrouded in speculation, strange occurrences, and government secrecy. But there was a big condition. He had to agree not to talk about it, pack his bags, leave the United States right away, and promise never to come back. Mel decided to accept the deal, and he moved to Australia for 2 years. But even so, he started to miss his family and everything back home. So, despite everything, Mel made up his mind to sneak back into the United States and visit his family. Mel's journey became riskier as he confronted danger and sought the elusive truth of the hole. Mel knew he wasn't supposed to come back, everyone had warned him, but Mel didn't listen. He came back to visit his family and even planned to tell more of his story on Art Bell's radio show, but things didn't go as planned, not at all. On the day he was supposed to go on the radio, Mel was on a bus. He was on his way to see his nephew. Out of nowhere, an argument started on the bus. It got so bad that the police came. Everyone on the bus had to answer questions. Then they were all moved to another bus to continue their journeys, but Mel's day was about to get weirder. Suddenly, he just blacked out. He had no idea what happened for a while. When he woke up, he found himself in a totally different place. He was in an alley in San Francisco, confused and scared. 12 whole days had disappeared from his life. His wallet was gone, his arm hurting a lot. He looked at it and saw marks like someone had put a needle in his arm many times in places where tape had been stuck on him, probably for an 4 tube. But wait, there's more. Mel tasted blood in his mouth. He checked and found out some of his back teeth were missing. How did that even happen? Mel was totally lost and didn't understand what was going on. Things didn't get any better for Mel. He never made it back to his own land. Next thing he knew, he was in trouble with the law. They said he built things he shouldn't have, like houses, roads, and other stuff. But Mel knew he didn't do any of that. Remember, the government had been using his land for 2 whole years, but that didn't matter. Mel ended up losing everything he owned. As if all that wasn't bad enough, just a day or 2 after he tried to talk to Art Bell again, Mel checked his bank and found out all his money was gone. Now a lot of people started saying Mel's story was just made up. They didn't believe any of it. But Art Bell, who loved a good mystery, invited Mel back to tell his story anyway. Mel shared something interesting. He said a TV crew went to look for his mysterious hole. They didn't find the hole, but they did find evidence that the military had been doing something big in the area. And there's another strange piece of the puzzle. Suddenly, airplanes weren't allowed to fly over Mel's land anymore. The area that was off limits for planes got even bigger. And then something weird appeared on the internet, on a website that showed satellite pictures of the Earth. The area around Mel's land was just a black square. You couldn't see anything. Some people thought Mel saw this black square online and made up the story about his land. But here's the thing, the website with the black square didn't start until 6 months after Mel first called Art Bell. He couldn't have known about it. But just when you think Mel's story can't get any stranger, something new happened. A Native American tribe from Nevada reached out to him. They had heard about his hole, and they had their own bottomless hole they were studying. They wanted Mel's help. They thought he might understand what was happening because of his own experiences. So now Mel had a new chapter in his life, heading to Nevada to explore another mystery. They took Mel to see another mysterious hole, but this time it was in a different place. Before they even got there, Mel had some talks with Native American people and a group called the BOS. They wanted to make sure Mel wasn't secretly working for someone else, like the news or the government. Once everything was cleared up, Mel got to see the new hole for himself. Everyone was wondering the same thing, what's at the bottom of this hole? This second hole wasn't on Native American land. It was in a public area where the BOS people, who originally came from the area between France and Spain, had been living. They had come to Nevada way back in the 1800s to herd sheep. The BOS folks said that this hole had been there for a really long time, at least 200 years, and they thought of it as a sacred place. It was about the same size as Mel's hole, around 9 feet across, but this hole looked different. Instead of a stone wall around the edge, this one had a metal ring all the way down, and it wasn't just any metal. It was something unusual. Mel noticed something really strange about this hole. It felt warm when he accidentally dropped a tool onto the metal ring. There was no sound. It was like the noise just disappeared. Mel and the BOS people decided to try some experiments first. They lowered a bucket filled with ice down into the hole. Going down about 1,000 feet, they also kept some ice up top to see what would happen to it when the ice on top melted. They pulled the bucket back up, but the ice down below it hadn't melted at all. Even weirder, it wasn't cold anymore, and it was totally dry, like chunks of salt. They tried to melt the strange ice with fire, but instead of melting, it actually caught on fire and kept burning for a really long time, like months. They tried sending different amounts of ice down the hole a few times. Sometimes it melted like normal, but other times it changed into the weird burnable kind. Then someone from the BOS group thought about going down the hole themselves, but everyone else quickly said that was a bad idea. So they came up with another plan. They would lower a sheep down into the hole instead. Now, this might sound strange, but they really did it. The sheep, though, seemed to know something wasn't right. It didn't want to go down into the hole at all. It was as if the sheep could sense that something weird was going to happen. Venture deeper into the enigma of Mel's hole. Blending the extraordinary with the unexplained, the team carefully lowered a box with a sheep inside deep into the hole, aiming for 1,000 feet down. Suddenly, the rope stopped moving, and everything around them felt strange. There was this weird sound, kind of like humming, that filled the air. They decided to leave the sheep down in the hole for about half an hour. When they pulled the box back up, everything looked just the same at first, but when they checked the sheep more closely, they found it wasn't moving, it seemed to be dead. Everyone was shocked and a bit scared. They felt like they were dealing with something really big, almost holy. The BOS people, who know a lot about sheep, decided to open up the sheep to see what had happened inside. What they found was really scary and weird. The inside of the sheep was like it had been cooked, and there was this huge tumor that took up most of the space inside it. Then things got even weirder. The tumor started moving all on its own. Everyone was so surprised and didn't know what to think. They decided to cut the tumor open to see what was inside. Inside, there was something that looked like a baby seal, but not exactly. It was connected to the tumor like a baby to its mom with an umbilical cord. But the eyes, those were human eyes. This seal-like thing, after they found it, moved to the edge of the table on its own. Mel felt like it wanted to go back to the hole. So, he picked it up, even though it was really slimy and smelled strange, like the air after a big storm, and put it near the hole. They all just watched each other for a couple of hours. Then suddenly, the seal thing looked at them one last time and jumped back into the hole. Before all this happened in Nevada, Mel was very sick. The doctors had told him he had a serious type of cancer in his throat and that he didn't have much time left. But after he came back from this incredible adventure, something amazing happened. He wasn't sick anymore. He felt better than he had in a long time. Mel believed that somehow meeting that seal-like creature had cured his cancer. This whole experience changed Mel's life completely. He went through something that most people would never even dream of. It was like he had stepped into a whole different world and come back a new person. As the episode of the radio show wrapped up, a serious caution was shared with everyone listening. The road to where Mel's mysterious hole was located was still out there, real and accessible. But there was a stern warning for all: don't try to go there. The message was clear: heading towards the hole could result in strange and possibly scary outcomes, like vanishing without a trace into something completely unknown. A few months after this, Mel went back on the Coast to Coast radio show. This time, he had more stories to tell, especially about what happened after those weird experiments with the never-ending burning ice. One of the BOS folks, trying to stay warm, had brought a chunk of this burning ice into his cabin. But what followed was nothing he could have ever expected. The fire from the ice never went out, it just kept burning for months. It did something strange to the air in the cabin: it pulled all the moisture out, making everything super dry. The guy living there got really dry skin and was always thirsty. Even trying to boil water was strange because the steam would somehow get sucked right into the fire. Then something totally unexpected happened. The wood stove, heated by this bizarre ice, just fell right through the floor of the cabin, as if the ground itself couldn't hold it up anymore. Instead of fixing it in a normal way, they just patched up the hole in the floor and kept using the weird fire for heat. But then things got even weirder. A few weeks later, the whole cabin just fell apart into dust, as if it had just given up. When the cabin owner came back a month later with his brother, they saw something really odd: the stove was now sitting 5 feet below where the ground used to be. It was as if the burning ice had created a new, baby version of Mel's bottomless hole right there under the stove, leaving a smooth and even surface all around. They tried to get the stove out but couldn't do it on their own. It wasn't until they brought in a huge crane that they were able to pull the stove out of this new mysterious pit. But that's not where the story ends. The BOS people started sharing their own experiences with the magical seal creature that had come from the original hole. They saw the seal as a kind of friendly spirit, a good presence that had somehow connected them to the strange and powerful energies of the hole. They felt a deep spiritual bond with it, something that went beyond normal understanding. And then there were the birds. Brightly colored birds started appearing around the hole. No matter what, they couldn't be scared off or hurt. They just kept flying around, unbothered by anything. The BOS saw these birds as a sign, a kind of acknowledgement or blessing from the magical seal and the mysterious energy of the hole. It was like the birds and the seal were part of a bigger spiritual story that was unfolding right there in Nevada. Moving on, the truth about Mel's hole remains elusive, shrouded in mystery and darkness. In a twist that could only be found in the most bizarre of tales, the BOS group came forward with a mind-bending claim. The magic seal, they said, had found a way to communicate with them. It wasn't through any normal means, but through a series of beeps and clicks over the radio. According to the BOS, these weren't just random noises, they were messages. The seal, they believed, was actually talking to them, warning them about the dangers of the special burning ice. It was telling them that this ice could cause terrible things to happen if it got into the wrong hands. Art Bell, always looking for proof to back up incredible claims, asked the BOS if they had any evidence of these strange communications. The BOS assured him they did. They had recordings of every beep, every click, every message they thought they'd heard from the seal. Art, intrigued, promised to get Mel back on the show to talk about it all. He wanted Mel to bring any evidence he could find: recordings, photos, videos, anything back from Nevada. The episode ended with promises of more to come. But then something unexpected happened. Mel went quiet. He stopped responding to Art's messages, and suddenly, his phone line went dead. No one heard from him again. 5 years passed. The story of Mel's hole became one of those lingering mysteries, full of what-ifs and maybes, never quite forgotten. Mel's hole, in the end, remains one of the most intriguing stories ever told on Art Bell's show. But what can we actually verify? When it comes to the hole's exact location, things get murky. While satellite images from TerraServer once showed a blacked-out area where the hole was said to be, Google Earth later made the area visible again. However, nothing conclusive was found. Even if the military had taken over, as Mel claimed, they might have hidden any trace of the hole. Dedicated fans and curious onlookers tried to pinpoint the real location based on Mel's descriptions. One person even visited a site that matched Mel's description of his property, complete with 2 old buildings, one of which had collapsed, just as Mel had said. They found a hole that matched Mel's description, 9 feet wide with a stone wall around it. For a moment, the online world buzzed with excitement. Could this be Mel's hole? But that excitement was short-lived. The hole turned out to be just an old well, with a clear bottom in sight. As for Mel himself, he remains as much a mystery as the hole. There are no records of anyone with his name living in the area where he said he lived. Some think he might have been using a fake name to protect his privacy. But one of the biggest holes in the story, so to speak, is the lack of any photos or physical evidence. Despite all the incredible tales, no one has been able to produce a single picture of the hole or any of the strange events said to have happened around it. Every time Mel chatted with Art Bell on the radio, Art would ask him for photos to prove his wild stories. But Mel always had an excuse. Sometimes he'd say he just forgot to snap pictures, which sounded odd. Other times, he claimed cameras just wouldn't work near the mysterious hole because of some strange interference. Then there were moments when Mel said he did have photos and recordings, but for some reason, he never seemed to have them on hand. He'd always say he'd send them over later. Despite these incredible stories, Mel never tried to make money off his tale. If he'd wanted to, he could have sold all sorts of merchandise, t-shirts, books, even fake photos. Plenty of people would have bought them, fascinated by the story. Some folks think Mel's story got so wild over time that he just couldn't keep up with his own fabrications, leading him to drop off the map. On the other hand, Mel was good at sticking to his original story. For 5 years, he never wavered, even when Art Bell tried hard to catch him in a lie. But let's talk about the hole itself. The idea of a hole that goes on for miles without collapsing is hard to believe. It's a geological puzzle, unless, of course, this hole was some magical gateway to another world. But we still don't know for sure. There are people who believe in Mel's hole, but even Art Bell, who loved a good mystery, might have had his doubts. Nevertheless, Art knew his audience loved these eerie, unexplainable tales. It's become a legend that has lasted decades. In 2017, a group of adventurous souls, still hooked on the mystery of Mel's hole, decided to take matters into their own hands. They gathered modern tech like GoPro cameras and powerful lights and set off to find this legendary pit. Their journey was sparked by some coordinates they found online, pointing them to what could be Mel's hole. They ended up at a farm, staring into what seemed like an endless void. The depth was beyond understanding. They tossed rocks down it, listening for any sign of a bottom, but the mystery only deepened. While they were there, they noticed someone, or something, watching them from afar. It added an eerie layer to their quest. They filmed everything, but before they could review the footage, they felt an urgent need to leave. Before departing, they saw a beetle fall into the hole, a moment symbolizing the deep, unending unknown that continues to draw us in, compelling the human imagination to wonder what secrets lie just out of reach. Is Mel's hole just an urban legend, or is there a deeper, darker truth buried in the Washington wilderness? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to hit like and subscribe for more mysterious tales.